12 hours. That is how long one bowl of this ancient meal kept the laborers of first-century Galilee steady through a full day of work. From the first cast of the fishing nets before sunrise to the lamp-lit supper after dusk. The secret is not a pharmaceutical. It is not an injection. It is a humble clay pot stew of lentils, barley, olive oil, and fenugreek that shows up again and again in the pages of Scripture, from the red lentil pottage Esau traded for in Genesis chapter 25 to the 7-grain bread described in Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 9. Modern research has since identified specific compounds in these foods, including galactomannan fiber, beta-glucan, lentil protein, and a slow-release carbohydrate matrix that may support satiety for many hours after a single meal. Before we walk through the kitchen, one clear sentence. This is not a replacement for any medication. If you are managing diabetes or weight with the guidance of a clinician, please keep that relationship front and center, and speak with your healthcare provider before changing how you eat. I want to begin where the Bible begins this story. Genesis chapter 25 tells of Esau returning from the field, exhausted, famished, ready to trade his birthright for a single bowl of Jacob's red pottage. The Hebrew text calls it Edom, the red one, and scholars across generations have agreed this was a stew of red lentils, perhaps thickened with barley or wheat, seasoned with onion and salt, and finished with a slow drizzle of olive oil. Esau was not tempted by a sweet cake or a roasted meat. He was undone by a bowl of humble legumes, because his body knew what the modern research is only now beginning to explain. A dense lentil stew satisfies hunger in a way that bread and meat alone do not. It carries both the feeling of fullness in the stomach and the slow, steady rise of blood sugar over hours, not minutes. And for a working man returning from a long day, that kind of nourishment was worth more than the world. Let me walk you through the compounds that make this meal do what it does. The first is lentil protein. A cup of cooked red lentils carries about 18 grams of plant protein with a broad amino acid profile, and recent nutritional analyses have found lentil protein exceptionally bioavailable when paired with cereal grains like barley. The American Journal of Clinical Nutrition has published work associating legume-heavy meals with lower postprandial glucose excursions, meaning steadier energy for longer periods after eating. The second compound is beta-glucan, a soluble fiber concentrated in barley and oats. Research suggests that beta-glucan forms a gentle, viscous gel in the gut that slows the release of sugars into the bloodstream and may support healthy cholesterol levels alongside feelings of sustained fullness. A 2020 review in Nutrients compiled dozens of clinical trials associating daily barley beta-glucan intake with improved satiety markers and reduced between-meal snacking. The third compound is galactomannan fiber, which brings us to the spice the Lord speaks about through the prophet Isaiah. Isaiah chapter 28, verses 25 through 27, names the fenugreek-like seeds scattered across Hebrew fields, and fenugreek itself, Trigonella phoenum graecum, has been excavated from Egyptian storerooms more than 3,000 years old. Fenugreek seeds are packed with galactomannan, a soluble fiber so thick and gel-forming that modern food chemists use it as a natural thickener in ice creams and soups. The British Journal of Nutrition has published studies associating fenugreek galactomannan intake with slower gastric emptying, gentler blood sugar curves after meals, and longer-lasting feelings of fullness. Pay attention to this next part. When fenugreek is soaked overnight and then simmered with lentils and barley, the galactomannan leaches into the broth, turning the stew into a velvety, almost silky texture. That silky quality is not just pleasant to the tongue. It is the fiber hydrating and swelling, and once it reaches the stomach, it does the same there, stretching gently against the chi-tui stomach wall and slowing digestion down to an ancient patient pace. The fourth compound is the slow-release carbohydrate matrix formed by barley, emmer wheat, and legumes when cooked slowly together in the same pot. Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 9 is famous for its recipe of wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt, all kneaded into one bread. The prophet was describing a hardship ration, yes, but the nutritional logic of mixing grains and legumes is the same logic that makes our stew work. Research published in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry has analyzed traditional legume-grain combinations and documented their complementary amino acid profile, their low glycemic index, and their dense package of resistant starch and insoluble fiber. The Journal of Nutritional Biochemistry has explored how such foods are associated with stable insulin response across 3 to 4 hours after eating. Add a second meal of the same type in the evening, and the steady energy can stretch through much of the day. The fifth compound is oleocanthal, a phenolic molecule in fresh extra virgin olive oil that gives good oil its peppery, almost throat-catching finish. Deuteronomy chapter 8, verses 7 through 8, names olive oil as one of the crowning gifts of the Promised Land, alongside wheat, barley, pomegranates, and honey. Oleocanthal has drawn intense attention in the last 15 years, with work in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry associating it with healthy inflammatory balance and cellular housekeeping. When the ancient cook finished the lentil stew with a generous swirl of fresh oil, she was adding more than flavor. She was adding a fat-soluble phenol that helped the body handle the meal gracefully, while also delivering the slow calories that keep satiety signals active deep into the afternoon. Olive oil is the quiet conductor of this entire meal. Let me take you, for a moment, into a first-century kitchen on the shore of the Sea of Galilee. Before sunrise, a woman sets a clay pot on the hearth. She has soaked a cup of red lentils overnight with a tablespoon of fenugreek seeds, so the bitter edge has softened, and the galactomannan is already unspooling into the water. She adds half a cup of cracked barley, 3 cups of fresh water, a slice of onion, a pinch of coarse salt, and a stem of fresh cumin. The pot simmers slowly for about an hour and a half over olive wood embers until the lentils have collapsed into a russet cream and the barley has turned glossy and tender. She ladles the stew into a shallow bowl, drizzles perhaps 2 tablespoons of new press olive oil across the surface, and tears off a piece of barley flatbread to scoop with. Her husband eats a bowl like this at dawn before leaving for the fishing boats. He will not eat again until long after sundown, and he will not need to. The meal has carried him 12 full hours. Here is what is remarkable about the science beneath that old pattern. A 2018 study published in Nutrients examined legume-based meals and found that a single serving of lentils at breakfast was associated with reduced hunger ratings as much as 8 to 10 hours later, compared to bread-based or meat-based breakfasts of equivalent calories. Another study in the British Journal of Nutrition associated soluble fiber-rich breakfasts with significantly lower voluntary calorie intake at the following 2 meals. Research suggests that the combination of plant protein, soluble fiber, resistant starch, and slow olive oil fat may support the body's natural satiety signaling, including the gut hormones that communicate fullness to the brain. The body, in other words, was designed to read this kind of meal as real food, and to quiet down afterward for a long, calm stretch. Now, how do you build this meal in your own kitchen? Begin with sourcing. For red lentils, choose whole, unsplit red lentils when you can find them. Ideally from a single origin supplier in Turkey, Syria, or Ethiopia, where the traditional varieties still grow. Split red lentils work too and cook faster. For barley, look for whole hulled barley or pot barley rather than pearled, because pearling strips away most of the beta-glucan-rich outer layers. A small bag of hulled barley will keep for months in a cool cupboard. For fenugreek, seek out whole golden brown seeds, not powder, and smell them before buying. Fresh seeds carry a warm, maple-like scent. Stale seeds smell dusty and flat. For olive oil, this is where you spend real money. Buy extra virgin olive oil in a dark glass bottle with a harvest date on the label, and look for oils from Greece, Palestine, Lebanon, Tunisia, or southern Italy, where traditional pressing methods preserve oleocanthal. Here is the preparation. The night before, rinse 1 cup of red lentils and 2 tablespoons of whole fenugreek seeds in cool water. Drain and soak them together in 4 cups of fresh water in a covered bowl on the counter. In the morning, pour off the soaking water and rinse once more. Place the lentil and fenugreek mixture in a heavy pot, preferably clay, or enameled cast iron with half a cup of whole barley, 1 small diced onion, 1 clove of garlic if you like, a teaspoon of ground cumin, half a teaspoon of salt, and 6 cups of fresh water or light broth. Bring to a slow simmer over medium heat, then reduce to low. Cover loosely and let the pot cook for 90 minutes at a temperature no higher than about 200 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface, around 93 degrees Celsius. Stir every 20 minutes or so, adding a splash of water if the stew begins to grab the bottom of the pot. You are looking for a thick, almost pudding-like consistency, with the barley grains soft but still holding their shape. When it is done, turn off the heat and let the stew rest, covered, for 10 minutes. Ladle into warm bowls. Finish each bowl with a generous 2 tablespoons of fresh extra virgin olive oil drizzled across the top, a squeeze of lemon juice, a pinch of flaky salt, and a scatter of fresh herbs if you have them. Parsley, coriander, or a few mint leaves. Eat slowly, with a piece of barley or whole wheat flatbread for scooping. Research suggests that chewing slowly and eating warm food may further support satiety signaling, giving the gut hormones time to reach the brain before the bowl is empty. A word on who should be careful. If you are living with diabetes, prediabetes, or any blood sugar condition, please remember that this meal is not a replacement for any medication, including Ozempic, metformin, or insulin. It may sit alongside your existing plan as a gentle daily breakfast or lunch, but changes to your medication dosage must always be decided with your healthcare provider, not with a soup pot. If you are pregnant, nursing, or on thyroid medication, please know that fenugreek at concentrated doses can interact with hormones and with levothyroxine, so speak with your clinician before making this meal a daily habit. And if your doctor has placed you on a low-fiber or low-FODMAP protocol for digestive reasons, legume-heavy stews may need to wait until your gut is ready for them. As always, the table serves the medicine. The medicine does not serve the table. There are a few small variations worth keeping in your pocket. If you want more protein density, stir in a 1/4 cup of cooked chickpeas at the end, which will contribute chickpea protein and additional slow-release carbohydrate. If you want a thicker porridge-like version, reduce the water to 5 cups and simmer for an extra 20 minutes. If you want to carry the meal to work, it holds beautifully for 3 days in the refrigerator and reheats gently with a splash of water. Some households in ancient Judea would have added a handful of parched wheat or soaked chickpeas to stretch a pot further. And the mixed legume version is arguably more faithful to the Ezekiel chapter 4 verse 9 pattern than a single legume pot. Research suggests that multi-legume meals may offer an even more complete amino acid profile because different legumes carry different strengths, and the overlap fills the nutritional gaps. Let me also address the name written on this video, the word Ozempic. I put it in the title because that is the conversation happening in our culture right now, and I wanted this meal to meet that conversation honestly. But nothing in this kitchen replaces a prescription medication, and nothing here is designed to treat diabetes or obesity. What an ancient bowl of lentil barley fenugreek stew may do is offer a long, stable experience of satiety in the context of a normal day, because the compounds inside it are genuinely effective at slowing digestion and steadying blood sugar response in healthy adults. If that helps you eat more mindfully, more slowly, and with less snacking between meals, that is a gift. But it is the gift of food, not of pharmacy. Please keep your healthcare provider informed about every significant change to your diet, especially if you are on GLP-1 medications, insulin, or any drug that adjusts blood sugar or hunger signaling. The two should work in concert under medical supervision, never in secret. What strikes me most about this ancient meal is how ordinary it looks. No shining packaging, no branded supplement, no weekly injection, just a clay pot, a handful of seeds, a splash of good oil, and the quiet wisdom of the first-century Mediterranean kitchen. And yet, when modern researchers slice open the chemistry, they find a genuinely sophisticated nutritional design. Complementary proteins, soluble fibers that swell into gels, resistant starches that feed the gut microbes, olive phenols that calm inflammatory markers, and a slow-release carbohydrate matrix that holds blood sugar steady for hours. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 19 reminds us that the body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. A temple deserves food prepared with care. A temple deserves the full hour of slow simmering, the generous pour of fresh oil, the patient overnight soak. You do not rush an altar. You do not hurry a temple. The ancient cook, who rose before dawn to start the lentils, knew that, and she blessed her household by that slow patience. Here is a thought that might sit with you quietly. The Israelites remembered in Numbers chapter 11 verse 5 the leeks and onions and garlic of Egypt, not the delicacies of kings. They remembered the simple, filling foods of the household, because those were the foods that shaped their bodies across generations. The foods that shape us are never the rarest ones. They are the ones we eat day after day without thinking, the foods that meet us in the ordinary middle of the week. A bowl of barley lentil stew with fenugreek and olive oil is exactly that kind of food. It does not ask for applause. It asks only for a warm bowl and a quiet 10 minutes at the table. And here is where we begin to close. Your body is a temple, not a machine waiting for the next chemical shortcut, but a dwelling place entrusted to you by the God who designed your hunger hormones, your gut microbes, your insulin curves, and your weariness at the end of a long day. He wove fullness and stability into plants before he wove them into pharmacies. Your concrete first step this week is simple. Tomorrow night, rinse 1 cup of red lentils and 2 tablespoons of fenugreek seeds. Soak them in 4 cups of water and set them on your counter. The next morning, cook them slowly with half a cup of barley for 90 minutes. Finish with good olive oil and eat 1 generous bowl as your breakfast. Then notice, watch the clock. See how long it is before your body asks for food again. Do not change any medication. Do not change any doctor's plan. Just observe what happens when you serve the temple the kind of meal it was designed to receive. If this conversation moved something in you, here is a small request that matters far more than a like or a subscribe. In the comments below, share 1 memory of a meal from your childhood that made you feel truly full, truly cared for, and truly at home. Not a diet, not a protocol, a memory. Because the path back to honoring our bodies often starts with remembering how deeply we were once fed, And if you want to keep walking this quiet road of biblical foods and the science beneath them, the next video in this series is waiting whenever you are ready. May your pot simmer slowly, your oil be fresh, your bread be warm, and your body find the peace it was always meant to carry. Go gently, eat slowly, and let the old wisdom settle in.